Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. What we saw in practice translated on the field doesn't always happen that way. All the young guys, all the transfers, all the freshmen who came to the national championship, who were traveling throughout the playoffs, those early enrollees, those guys visualizing being in that situation themselves, all that translated. They were ready for it. That was Ryan Day yesterday at his press conference, talking about all the new guys that are out there playing at a very high level here in game number 1. And we talk about things, and I talk about it all the time. Championship DNA. It kind of just hit me in the face when I was listening to him say that. Like, sometimes we watch a program win a national championship, something kind of takes hold in the program and you can't really explain it, but you know, when you see it from time to time in college football, and they're able to turn over the roster after a national championship, and the new guys that come in are new to us on the outside looking in. They come in and they're starting. We saw it at Clemson. We saw it obviously at Alabama, Georgia in 21 and 22. But the new guys look just like the old guys. They look ready for the moment. They look just as good. They're just as fast. They're just as sound. And there's something that can happen when you get just the right recipe going on in your program with everybody pulling in the same direction, and the culture and the values, the selflessness. And it's just been that way for a certain period of time that you can hold on to. And it just continues to elevate you and you win at the highest level. Every coach wants a culture of selflessness, sacrifice. That's the goal for every single coach in college football. But so few at the highest level of college football can actually get that done. You see it at D3 schools a lot. You see it at some programs at the FBS level, programs like Kansas State, Iowa State comes to mind, like guys that just, their whole culture and identity is about selflessness, under-recruited guys playing above their level, the power of the team over the individual. And you see it, and it's like, it's cool. It works for them at that kind of level. You so very rarely see it at a blue blood program. And Ryan Day has been able to do it at the biggest program of all. The selflessness from the top down. And when we look at guys, and some would say, like, look at Brandon Inniss. Brandon Inniss waited his turn, waited till year 3. Forget Brandon Inniss. Look at a guy like Bryson Rodgers, who's still not playing at all. That's a kid that could be starting anywhere. I can't stress how good this guy is. That kid could be starting at 130 of 136 schools, 130 of them. And he is at Ohio State with a great attitude and just wait until he can contribute, practicing as hard as ever. And there's a dozen examples of guys like that on this team. And what's happening at Ohio State, it's special. In addition to the championship, you've got a championship coaching staff who is now clearly showing us they can win in multiple different ways. We saw one Saturday. Some under the impression that this 2025 team, like what we just saw, is what we're going to get. A defensive-led team that's going to win ugly and limit possessions and, win like the old Ravens defense or something. I totally disagree. It's a great defense, no doubt. But I think we're going to see this offense unleashed. And I think as Ohio State fans, I think it's important sometimes as we're living in the moment. So often we look back and say, like, man, we had it good at this point, or this and this was happening back then. But it's important to recognize sometimes in the moment what we're going through. And I think that right now we could be living in the most successful stretch of Ohio State football we'll ever experience in our lives. The run that Ohio State went on at the end of last year to win the national championship, coming in this year as the defending national champion, losing 15 guys to the NFL, rolling over so much of this starting roster, and the Buckeyes come in and are now number one in the country, odds-on favorite to win the national championship, just beating the number one team that was the odds-on favorite to win the national championship to start off the year. And that puts Ohio State in its last 10 games, having beaten 7 top 10 opponents. It's just stupid to say. It's silly to think. 7 top 10 opponents in 7 games. It's very rare that we may ever see this opportunity come up again to be able to knock off 7 teams that rank that highly in 10 games. 6 top 5 opponents in a row. That's so crazy. Ryan Day was 2-6 against top 5 opponents, and he's now won 6 in a row. And as we sit here at number one in the country, the defending national champion, there have just not been many days in our lives, if you're around my age or younger, where we can say Ohio State has been in better position as a program than it is right now, or been closer to being considered by the rest of college football as the most dominant program in college football, like the program in college football. I believe it is. I believe that after they won the national championship. And it's the first time in my life I can say that. After this win, I really feel that way. Ohio State now rolling over the roster and still cooking like this, the attitudes, the players that are emerging, the leaders that are emerging. Ohio State, the best program in college football, hands down right now. The very top of the food chain. They've overtaken Georgia for that role. Georgia, who's back-to-back national championships in 21 and 22, put them there. They were that dude, and Georgia is still right there. But Ohio State, in my opinion, has supplanted them as the top program in college football. And as of now, I don't think that's changing this year. They're the best program. Other times in my life that Ohio State potentially could have argued for that spot, 2015, where they came in as the odds-on favorite with so much obvious first-round talent. We might have as much first-round talent on this team right now. We just don't know it yet. But coming in as such a huge favorite to win the national championship that year, and at this particular time in that 2020 or 2015 season, they were definitely the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. But they were doing that in an era where Nick Saban was still at Alabama. And Alabama was always going to be considered that top-tier program in that era. Even if they had won back-to-back, I still think that would be the case. That's not the case right now. It's wide open for anybody to take, and I think right now it is the Buckeyes who are that dominant program. And it could be the most dominant period of Ohio State football that we will ever experience in our lives. So I choose to recognize it and enjoy it. And it appeared, honestly, the end of the 2023 season, the Ryan Day tenure was heading down the wrong track. It was heading down. That 2023 season didn't feel like it had felt. You lose the game, the quarterback transfers, the team just played, it just felt uninspired most of the year. Then you had the disgusting Missouri experience. Everything felt like it was trending down. And that was not very long ago. When we look from that point to now, what an insane change. I mean, I got a story about the end of that game, that Missouri game, but the change that we've experienced from then to now is just crazy. And I just think that it's important to acknowledge where we're sitting right now. When we look at all the little nitpicky things that we can say here or there, like, man, it's damn good to be a Buckeye. Maybe never been better. And it's important to note that. Welcome in to Buckeye Huddle Primetime. I'm your host, Chuck. You're watching Buckeye Huddle, our YouTube channel. We obviously have a site, buckeyehuddle.com. And I believe it's the single most comprehensive Ohio State football coverage anywhere in this world. That may sound hyperbolic, but I think it's true. It's a combination of recruiting coverage, both on the site and on YouTube, team coverage, both on the site and on YouTube, podcast format, every press conference, every activity, every single camp that takes place at Ohio State. We go to high school games around the country to cover recruiting. Mark and Kevin take their southern swing to go talk to 40 Southern prospects every year. The most robust post-game show on the internet, goes on for about 2.5 hours and brings in various perspectives, including the opponent's coaches news conference, which last week's Steve Sarkisian press conference, 80,000 views. In addition to that, we have no less than 3 X's and O's gurus at BuckeyeHuddle.com who break down things on the technical side for us all to understand a little more what's happening. So you can join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be great. And let's like the show. Here we go. As always, I will open it up to you guys at the end of this live interactive show. Maybe sometimes, while we're going, if you got some interesting things that catch my eye, I certainly will pull it up here on the stand here, like my guy here, Jake. Damn straight, Juck. Proud to be a Buckeye always. So back to what I was talking about there. I started my my podcasting journey right after that Missouri game that I was talking about, where things felt like they were trending down. I ordered my podcast equipment. I said, that's it. I'm doing this. I had always wanted to do it. And I always wanted to do it as a hobby. I never intended it to turning into actual work. And it still doesn't feel like work for me. It's just fun. I stay up till 3 a.m. to get my shows done and sacrifice sleep. And none of it ever feels like I have to do it. I love it. But I didn't think it would turn into work because I didn't think I'd have the opportunity to turn it into actual work. You got to get lucky to make that happen. People got to really like what you're selling, or else nobody's going to hire you, or you're not going to make any money at it. But the Missouri game, the tone of the program, the way things felt, I ordered my equipment. And by the time it came in, that's when I started doing my episodes. Everything had changed because Ryan Day had made one single decision that made me feel like he was changing the way he was about to operate the program. And boy, did he ever that offseason. That was the first offseason that Ohio State went big time into the transfer portal. And it started, to me, with a real decision that felt consequential, was not a decision that helped them win a national championship in 2024, but the decision that we are seeing come to fruition right now. And that is the decision to bring on Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin came into that class with Aaron Nolan already committed in that class. And that is a decision that Ryan Day really struggled with. A very tough decision, a cutthroat decision in a lot of ways. And I don't think Ryan Day makes that decision before that moment. And when the team was in that situation, they had 2 days of internal debate at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center as to what they should do there. What were they going to do? And Ryan Day did not want to go back on his word to Aaron Nolan that he wasn't going to take another quarterback in the class. And we owe a lot, if you're someone who is very happy that Julian Sayin's on this roster, to Corey Dennis. Corey Dennis pounding the table saying, we all know that Julian Sayin is the best guy in this class. And sure enough, he is. And Julian, the quarterback of the Buckeyes, now the number 1 Buckeyes. I went down yesterday to the press conference at the Woody to listen to the boss, to hear him talk about Julian Sayin after his first career start, close to 1.5 years after that decision. And I just kept thinking back to the way things felt back then and how the program feels today and how much it relates to that decision, that one decision. And I thought that yesterday was one of the more revealing press conferences I've ever heard from Ryan Day. Again, this is a guy who now in year 7 just feels much different than he used to when it comes to how much he lets us in, which I love. I mean, he used to be very reluctant to come off of any information at all. Now, he would talk a lot. He would give you an answer, right? But he wasn't forthcoming with any information if it was a real serious question. So very polite, but wouldn't give you much. Yesterday was so insightful about the Texas game and about a lot of other things. And I had a difficult time keeping up with my notes. And I only write down things that I intend to talk about on the show, but he just kept going with interesting things. And listening to him give some more insight on a couple of things got me thinking a little more. But I do want to go over some of the things that he had to say yesterday. One of the things I was talking about the other day, some of the fan base not being happy with the game plan. And Ryan Day spoke a little bit about that in terms of something that used to be a big deal, style points. And style points, to be clear, mean absolutely nothing anymore in this era of college football. But Ryan Day did bring that up. I thought it was interesting to think about.
14 might have to be enough.
Yeah, I can't sit up and say to you guys that the number one goal is to just win. You know, if it's 14-7, we have to be really, really excited about that. You know, I think, you know, in college football and, you know, before there was the playoff system, but even still now, and just being, you know, at a place like Ohio State, you know, there's certain things that, you know, there's quote unquote, you know, the look test and style points, which is a pretty dangerous place to go sometimes, because the number one goal is to win. And if you get too worried about that, that can cost you a game. And so, especially in a game like this, you know, the number one thing was to win the game. We wanted to establish an identity in terms of
win the game, win the game, win the game. We heard him say it. I put up a little cut up of it last week. It was, you know, it was the clear message to the team: win the game. And many called his game plan Tressel-esque, right? Tressel ball. Now, I love Jim Tressel. Jim Tressel will always be like the godfather of Ohio State football to me, right? We all have our own opinions. When we think of Ohio State football, what comes to mind? To me, give me one figure. It's Jim Tressel. He's just larger than life to me. He represents everything I love about the program and always have. And I hated Tressel ball because, honestly, in that era that he coached in, people's opinions mattered a lot. The talking heads' opinions mattered a lot. They were very influential in a lot of things that could determine a BCS spot. And you wanted to have, you wanted to blow your opponent out. And Tressel could oftentimes and didn't, because he played it safe, and he played it much like Ohio State played against Texas. When the 12-team playoff first came out, I ran the data, and half of the playoffs in the previous 10 years, if we were running with the 12-team playoff, we would have had a 3-loss team included. Going to next year's format, which I believe will be the 5-11, the 16-team playoff, that means every single year we're going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 3-loss teams included. Sometimes a 4-loss team will be on the bubble. So what's that mean? It means a 9-3 season at Ohio State or any big-time program, you're guaranteed a playoff spot. If a 9-3 team is guaranteed in the playoffs, style points mean absolutely nothing anymore. They've never meant less. They really mean nothing. And if you want to tell me, well, what if you're 8-4? You're going to want those style points. If Ohio State's 8-4, I don't want them in the playoffs. They don't deserve it. They're certainly not going to win in the playoffs. So not concerning to me at all. So style points no longer mean anything, meaning this is actually the best era for Tressel ball. But I don't think that's what we're going to see moving forward. And Ryan Day did speak more on that Texas game plan. He wasn't totally satisfied with the decisions towards the end of the game. Obviously, I didn't like that previous to the last possession there. I'm sure you didn't either. He said they needed to be more aggressive there. What they did, Texas comes down and scores. I think, what was there, maybe a little over 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left. Ohio State ran the ball for no gain. Then on 2nd and 10, threw an incompletion, right? They said that's bad. And yes, that was bad. He wanted to make it clear. He was self-criticizing as he was involved in the game plan. He said, I was involved in that. Some people thought he was maybe taking a little shot at Hartline and then was maybe clearing that up. I didn't take it that way, but I have heard that mentioned today. I don't think he would be taking shots at Hartline at this point after game one, to be honest, even if he didn't agree. But it was clear that they wanted to limit Texas possessions after they went up. And that's how you want to play it. Run the clock. He talked about taking 8 minutes off the clock. And then he talked about time of possession, which is also pretty interesting to talk about this day and age.
I think if we felt like we were getting off the field on defense and playing good defensively, we wanted to limit the possessions that they had, which I think we did. You know, certainly that long drive, we ate 8 minutes off the clock. You know, they used to say that like time of possession is one of the most overrated statistics. So not really, not when you're in a game like that and you're trying to keep, you know, a really good offense off the field, and really good players. So once you get into halftime, that's kind of when you start to figure out, all right, where are we? You know, we're up by 7. We feel like we're playing good on defense. We are getting some movement, you know, up front. You know, we're you know, playing physical on offense. You know, at some point we're gonna have to take a shot or two, and then, you know, see what happens there in the first 4 minutes of the third quarter.
So time of possession used to be a very, like when I was younger, that was a huge stat. You win time of possession, you usually win the game. And then football changed. It totally changed. And we started seeing offenses score a boatload of points. And then obviously time of possession didn't mean anything. Well, he brings up, and he's right, that in a game played like they were playing, that style of game, absolutely, it means a ton. Now, I don't mind how they played as the game plan against Texas at all. I thought it was smart. I thought it produced a great result. I don't like that as like, okay, this is how we're going to play moving forward. That would suck. A lot of games I want to see, look, this is kind of the way, this isn't the right example, but Ohio State has decided to run slower on offense. They started it last year. It has resulted in fewer offensive plays, which for a extended playoff run keeps you a little fresher, longer, etc. Helps the defense playing less plays. It worked. They got proof of concept. Well, they won a national championship, so you can't say anything didn't work, right? But I think if they'd have just run it the normal, how they usually run it, they'd have still won that national championship. Doesn't matter. The point is, that's the way they're going to be playing it from now on. And they're running less offensive plays, which I don't like because it's less football. More plays in a football game means more football. I love football. So there we go. It's pretty much that simple. But the Buckeyes had 4 offensive possessions in the first half, which is insane. That's gross. I hate it. Now, the folks criticizing that game plan, I think they were doing so because they think, all right, if we're in that situation again, they think that it's riskier to play like you played against Texas than it is to potentially push the pace, risking a turnover. They think it's actually riskier to play it so close. And they're pointing to Arch Manning. If he hits Ryan Wingo and they get that first down in that last possession and Texas scores, they're going for 2. They are at a hostile environment. They're not taking it to overtime. They're going for 2. So they scored that touchdown. They're going to go for 2. If they score, the game's over, you lose. And then everybody is just slamming their game plan in that situation. And I understand their point. But I think it was a one-time thing. I don't think we're going to see them do that again. I think it's a really unique circumstance that you had a first-time starting quarterback and a first-time offensive coordinator in a position so enormous, right? So it just felt to me like a one-off game. Whatever they did there is what they were going to do there to win that game, and that's it. And remember, after the game, Ryan Day said that Brian Hartline called a very unselfish game. He said he was very unselfish there. And he was. Brian didn't care anything about himself, right? He's making his debut. That's going on his resume. He's an offensive coordinator. As a coordinator, you get judged, and those are stats going on your record. That's a 200-yard game. No offensive coordinator wants that. That looks like a horrible L, right? Looks like you're taking an L right there. But he didn't care. All he cared about was winning the damn game. And it's that kind of unselfishness that permeates throughout Ryan Day's entire program, which is, again, a very rare thing at this level of football. One thing that did stand out, not so hot, that wasn't asked yesterday that I noticed, the punting game. Joe McGuire and Nick McClarty, obviously, were battling for the punting position. McClarty is the 6'7". They're both Australian, but this is the 6'7" one that can absolutely boom it, but he doesn't have much touch, and he sometimes just kind of shanks it off the side of his foot. Now, you pick McGuire he's the one with the pop gun, right? He's got the pop gun, got no distance on it, and this dude was kind of shanking it a little bit. Now, important to note that he did come up crucial when it mattered most. That final punt put the Bucs in an excellent defensive position, but when you are playing a game that looks like Trestle ball, Jim Tressel would have had an absolute aneurysm with a punter putting on a performance like McGuire did. He has got to get better, or they got to go to McClarty. That's for sure. Offensive line. Ryan Day was asked about the O-line. He was asked about Phil Daniels, and he said that Phil, who was a total mad dog against Texas, Phil Daniels, what a stinking surprise, man. When this guy was brought in out of the transfer portal, I was very happy. An Ohio guy coming in, but it seemed pretty clear like he was going to be not ready this year. More of a depth piece, which is fine. He's got 3 years of eligibility left. All right, cool. So Phil Daniels starts against Texas and totally dominates. absolutely a dominant performance, not a single sack allowed. He was good in the run blocking and a huge assignment for his very first start. But it was his consistency that won him that job. And Ryan Day also said he thought that Austin Sierreveld, Carson, Luke also played well. Texas had a good game plan, and they had some inconsistent stuff that they were running up front, so they fooled him a couple times. Thinks it's something that they can build off of. Loved watching their reaction on the 4th and 1. Bucks go for it, 4th and 1 or 4th and goal at the goal line, and they score. The guys go nuts, and he loved seeing that. Saw a lot of things that they can build off of, and loved the way that they were finishing players and called them a real gritty bunch, which is great. That's a great foundation. Phil Daniels, definitely very gritty. Carson Hinsman, gritty. Luke is gritty. Austin's gritty. He did not name Tegra or Ethan when he was talking about good performances. They both played at right guard, and they both didn't play very good. Now, Ethan, going to be part of that crew, going to remain at right guard, maybe rotate in at right tackle. We'll see if he plays better at tackle, if he rotates in there. But similar to last year, right guard remains the spot that looks a little weak compared to the rest of the offensive line. I was hoping that we would see Tegra take a step up this year, and we still might, just game one, but not yet. Not in game number one. That was pretty apparent. But as far as these guys go and the running game, like, these guys are going to gel. They're going to get better. This will be one of the top 5 offensive lines in the country this year. I have no doubt about that. Tight ends. Started talking about the tight ends a little when he was asked about Will Kazmarek and the excellent block he made on the touchdown throw that Julian made to Carnell Tate. And Will Kazmarek made a great block on that play against the best pass rusher in the country, Colin Simmons. He got beat originally and then did a 360 to get back in front of him to get Julian just enough time. And he talked about him being one of the best inline tight ends in the country now, played 48 snaps. 70% of the game they played with 2 tight ends. Now, you would think the run game would be a little bit better. You would hope so, with 2 tight ends in 70% of the time. But obviously, he was pleased with those tight ends. Mentioned Max Clare, Bennett Christian, Jelani Thurman, Nate Roberts. All of them played, all 5 of them. The only tight ends that didn't play, Max LeBlanc and freshman Brody Lennon. Now, Jelani Thurman played 7 snaps. And I was thinking about this. Jelani, a guy that we've talked about so much since he came in, that it's hard to remember sometimes. This dude's only in year 3, starting year 3 right now. Both Bennett Christian and Will Kazmarek are older players. But if I was telling you at the beginning of last year that Jelani Thurman would still be on the team, and in the 2025 opener, he'd be the 4th tight end on the depth chart, you would not have believed me. That's how deep this tight end room is. And how about Nate Roberts as a freshman, the number 5 tight end, coming in and getting a play as the fullback on a 4th and goal situation? That's crazy. That's big time trust in a freshman. And there's a couple of these freshmen that are like that. Let's get to Julian Sayin. Taking us back to the offseason and that decision. The Buckeyes, that decision was part of the decision that took them to the top. Here's what he had to say about Julian and how he graded out.
At over 80%, his adjusted completion percentage with a few drops was pretty good. So we felt like he took care of the ball, made some good throws. I'd like to think that if we had made a few plays for him earlier on in the game, maybe it would have gone a different direction, but I don't think he ever flinched. So good start, a lot of football to go, though.
Good start, a lot of football to go, and Ryan Day really talked about all the improvements that need made, and he harped on it constantly about all the improvements and how many things didn't go right. And he kind of sounds like Nick Saban now in a press conference, which I love. Like, nothing was good enough. Push it. I love it. But that pass to Carnell Tate, he also talked about. And the pass to Tate, if you throw that ball on a line, he said, you got to be so accurate. And we talk about those deep balls all the time. We want them to put a lot of air under that. We got great receivers, and we want them to give those receivers an opportunity to make a play. It gives them a larger margin of error, or potentially a pass interference call. So Julian threw that ball perfectly, and it brought me back to the beginning of practice, the beginning of fall camp, practice number 3 that a lot of the media were at. And I was talking about a drill that they were doing where they were all the quarterbacks standing at the 40 and throwing it to the goal line, essentially just aiming for the goal line. And Julian Sayin just peppered it within a yard of that goal line every time. The other quarterbacks, it's a very hard thing to do. And you could see it by the results of all the other quarterbacks. They were very all over the place, right? They were in the general vicinity. Julian can kind of drop it on top. Lisa, I'm going to hit your comment in a few. Anyway, Brian Day was also asked about the fourth down play where Julian hit Max Clare in the hands. Here's what he had to say about that.
I thought the design was right there. I think what you want to do with a young quarterback, sort of in his first start and his first big spot right there on fourth down, is what'd you see? And, he said, he felt the backside safety sort of running to the middle of the field. Back on film, you see him sort of running over the top on Max. Made a ton of sense to me. The fact that he thought he was running to the middle of the field in a single high look. And then, he got his feet, quickened up his feet, and put the ball on Max. It was towards the sideline, so maybe we would have liked it a little bit sooner. He was really selling the action, you could tell. So maybe, had another step or two in the fake that he could have snapped around a little bit faster, which would allow him maybe to see it a little better. But I thought he threw a heck of a ball. I mean, this is his first start ever. We got to help him out. And it's good to see he and Max connect on a pass later on. But it was a good route by Max. Jeremiah was flying. I thought the design was right. And we're trying to be aggressive early in the game. And, you hit that, who knows what happens. But that's a game of football.
And JJ, it was a touchdown. It was a touchdown if he throws it to JJ on that play. But man, kid's first ever fourth down, right? Ever of his career. You can't be mad about that. And then he also throws a pass that should have been completed for a first down. And he's absolutely right. Max Clare, got to help him out on that. I don't think we will ever see Julian Sayin play another game like we just saw. Never again with the reins so tight on him. And it seemed to me in both the postseason press conference and the yesterday's press conference that Ryan Day was surprised at how well he handled it. And when we look back at the spring game and what had been going on up until the spring game, which was basically back and forth between Julian, Lincoln, who's playing better, we see when the lights turned on, Julian was excellent in the spring game. Didn't look particularly close between him and Lincoln. Then we see what happens in game number 1. Julian was excellent. It seems to me like we got a dude with ice in his veins who's just a total gamer. When the lights come on, he's a cooler customer than anybody else. When you look at his opponent, the guy across the field in the same kind of circumstance, granted, a harder way to go, right? He's on the road, but all the pressure in the world. And Julian, not concerned at all, man. Just ice in his veins. In the post-game interview, he sounded just cool as a cucumber. He just never gets high, never gets low. Kind of the perfect disposition you want in a quarterback at Ohio State. But I am curious, those who, and I've talked to many of you through the offseason, very concerned about Julian Sayin's size. Obviously, we didn't see him run the ball at all against Texas, and we didn't see him take a sack. So if you're someone who is concerned about the size, do you feel any better? Or are you still holding out? Not sure. But he did not get sacked. And I think that a lot of that has to do with not just the blocking, but with him, with how quick he gets the ball out of the hands, with a really good feel in the pocket of when to bail and when to stay in. And there's a lot to be said about that. And he's fast enough to get out of the way when he needs to. But when it comes to confidence, decision-making, the dude is just fantastic. And if you're someone who really wanted Lincoln to start, I was trying to think about how that game plan might have looked a little different with Lincoln. We saw Julian on some read options, obviously hand the ball off, and it looked like he didn't really have the go-ahead to keep it because it was open. Otherwise, it was pretty poor reads if he was allowed to keep it. I'm guessing he wasn't. I think we'd have seen a lot more of that with Lincoln. I don't think that he would have been as accurate as Julian because he's just not, but I don't know. I don't know that you win that game with Lincoln. Either way, as we roll into next week, I think we're going to see some Lincoln. And it is going to be an interesting debate because some people are going to say, like, look, we got a starting quarterback just playing in his second game. In game number 1, you didn't let him do a whole lot. It's time to see him kind of open it up. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle game number 2 and game number 3, how much run they give Lincoln versus how much you play Julian out there and have him run the full offense with this full complement. Interesting decision here to make because you want to see him gel with his guys in a real game. And I don't know how much we can really compare Grambling to Ohio. Ohio is going to be much better in a much stiffer test, though still, probably look, they were pretty close with Rutgers 36-33. And obviously Ohio State's not Rutgers, but we're talking about a program that won the MAC last year in Ohio. So be interesting to see. But first is Grambling. Talked about the running game and the running backs. Was asked, we thought we thought James was the starter, but CJ was the starter. How did that happen? And here's what Ryan Day had to say about the running backs.
The running back situation. Obviously, both CJ and James were going to play. You talked about that, but I thought James would be the starter and CJ would be the backup. What did CJ do to kind of earn that starting job?
Yeah, no, they're working together, and we're going to need them both, just like last year, and so we'll continue to do that. And I think James had 10 carries, and CJ, I'm not if he had more than that, but I mean we're gonna break it up and kind of let Locke roll those guys. But you could probably see James get more carries this week, and then maybe CJ more the next week. That's just kind of how it goes. And it was the same way with with Travion and Quinshon last year. And I think I looked, I think Travion only carried the ball more than 10 times, like twice last year. So, we got a long way to go, and we're going to need all these guys.
Ryan Day is the only one that says Travion Henderson, Travion. Have you ever noticed that? The only one I've ever heard say it like that. It's pretty funny. But when we talk about the running game, it is true. James Peoples only had 10 carries, and Travion Henderson only had a couple of games over 10 carries. Now, a lot of people concerned about James Peoples, concerned about his vision. I'm not concerned about James Peoples a bit. He didn't get a true workload, in my opinion. I mean, he's never really had a true workload. He had 10 carries in a massive game against his hometown team, right? I didn't expect a ton more. I expected CJ Donaldson to be a little better in this game, and he was a little better in this game, maybe a little more than a little better. I'm also not someone who is huge on James Peoples. I think that all the vision issues that everybody's seeing right now, they were apparent last year. They were apparent in his freshman year where he averaged 4 yards a carry. I believe he's a really good back. He has the potential to be a really good back. I believe and have believed all spring, I've been saying it all along, that I think Bo Jackson will be heavily involved in this run game this year as a freshman. The interesting thing to me is I'm now seeing people say that who were huge on James Peoples all offseason, saying he was the next J.K. Dobbins. And now they're saying, I think we're going to see more Bo, which is interesting. Stick with your guy, man. Shame on you. Your dude has one lousy game. You've been pumping up all offseason. Now you're going to bail right now. The truth is the passing game opening up. I mean, this goes hand in hand. The running game is going to be much better when the passing game gets opened up a little bit. And both James and CJ going to find success in the running game. Going to look much different as we move forward. And will definitely be a situation where we're going to get Bo as well. But I think that we're going to see better James moving forward. No doubt about that. Hey, let's all like the show. Subscribe to Buckeye Huddle if you're not. We are so close to our 30,000 subscriber goal. We wanted to do it before the Texas game. Hopefully we can get there before Grambling, right on the cusp. If you're thinking about it, go ahead and hit that. Help us out. Let's see if you guys got anything you want to hit before I open up the top 25, which we are going to go over. I started a couple of these while I was talking. Now, this was very difficult to do. Hopefully I can get one of you guys to come back here in the back room and star the comments for me that are interesting. Jake D, in his first game versus the prodigal son and the number one team trying to defend the home turf, kid is a darn gamer, like Stroud, except more fiery. Now, I think there are some serious Stroud similarities. I will say, Jake. I will say. I don't know that I see the more fiery, but I do see the similarities. Mar says, that decision really changed everything because I don't think they would have felt as good about Lincoln, Devin, or Air as they do with Sayin. And he's talking about the decision Ryan Day made to bring on Julian Sayin, which was a very difficult decision for him. one that I don't think he would have made before that time period. And yeah, I think you're right. It might honestly have been a situation where they brought in another transfer this year, and I don't think anybody wants to see that in consecutive years. My man Rod said Day used to give the Tressel coach speak answers where he'd talk for a couple minutes without giving an answer. Rod, he was so good at it that I would be listening and being like, this is an insightful, wait a minute, this is not what the question was. He was good at it. And Jim was good at it too. Jake D, this is true. 80% adjusted completion percentage for Julian, according to Day yesterday. Sure was. That's taking away the drops, accurate balls that should have been caught. And let's not forget the dot that he threw to Brandon Innes. Oh, I wish Innes would have caught that. It would have been such a huge play, fired everybody up, fired Brandon up, and Brandon deserves it and makes that play so often in practice. You just hope that he makes it in the game. And that was his shot, man. Gets named a captain, comes in, makes a catch like that. Would have been great. Woody's, what's up, brother? Going for it on fourth down multiple times with no field goals, Tressel would never. That's a good point. All right, here's Lisa. Lisa, we are number one, but not getting credit for beating Texas. More like Texas beat themselves, or they shouldn't have been number one to begin with. That's okay, though. Motivates our team to prove the doubters wrong. I mean, when they were. Lisa, it never fails. It never fails. I sat here the last couple of days and just watched all the conversation about the game and about who's going to be number one. And so much of it was Texas wasn't that good. Ohio State wasn't that good. Both were overrated. And I'm just like, it really reminded me and got me talking more about this Tressel situation and how frustrating it used to be back then during the Tressel era, because that was always the conversation when Ohio State would beat a big time team. Because in honestly games, Jim could have beat the hell out of people. He kept it close. He did it. He played it how Ryan played it. But it's always been true with Ohio State. It always will be. The different thing is, and I feel like Georgia or Alabama never get treated like this. They never get treated like this when they're on top of college football. They get treated just the opposite. They get complimented for games like this. They would be fawned over for the unselfishness, all the real shit all the real stuff that happened. They get complimented for it, but not Ohio State. It's just the way it is. I don't know why. Drives me nuts. Manfred, if Wingo didn't drop it, what about if JJ and Claire didn't drop theirs? I feel if the game went faster, it would have helped Manning get settled in, as we saw near the end. Tressel Ball was smart. That's a very interesting point. Juck, why aren't you streaming on Twitter? So Twitter, not really advantageous to the platform unless you can get those people over to YouTube. But anyway, it's not my call. It's not my channel. You know what I mean? Jake D, I'd let Sayin run the full complement and more of the playbook for the first quarter only, regardless of the score, then get the backups in. Ohio University, we can extend that even more for Sayin. So you're going to sacrifice 3 quarters, Jake. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd go at least a half. I'd go at least a half this weekend. Of course, that could be me being selfish. I want to see him play more. Okay, Jake D, you could see it on the broadcast, Chuck. Sayin was clapping dudes up and never got that stone face CJ used to. And on the play he missed JJ, he went straight up to him on the sidelines immediately to talk. Okay, I'm going to have to watch the broadcast. I only watched the broadcast in the fast format, so you miss all the in between play. So I watched it like that. Then I watched the all 22. I didn't watch the actual slow down, watch the 3-hour broadcast. So I'll have to do that. Rod feels like Urban might coach again, man. I hope he doesn't, dude. I really do, because he just can't. I don't think he can win in this era, and I don't want him to ruin his legacy. Some people will say that Jacksonville ruined his legacy. I don't think so at all. Not any more than Nick Saban's Miami stint ruined his legacy. Get out of here with that. Adam, what's up, bud? Sick of the media saying that should have been or that could have happened in the Texas game, all about what Texas did wrong instead of what the Buckeyes did right. No credit. That's true. Everybody loves it. Keep doubting us. It's because they're the SEC darlings. That's always true. Yeah. Alabama, boy. Down bad, buddy. Down bad. What's up, Don? How you doing, brother? Jake D talking about Matt be great, an Alabama fan that somehow, man, the amount of people that watch that guy. I mean, I'm impressed as someone who does what he does. I'm impressed. Like that guy gets a killer amount of views to talk some ridiculous. I mean, I've never heard him make a salient point, and I've watched him a couple times. Bobby Phillip Daniels is absolutely dog. All right, let's pull up the top 25 poll. As the Buckeyes, there was a big argument who was going to be number one. The Buckeyes do get the number one spot, and despite this being a big argument all over Twitter and all over the interwebs, it wasn't even close. They win in a landslide, 55 votes to like 5 for Penn State and maybe 3 for LSU. Now, LSU and Ohio State both with impressive week 1 wins. Penn State did not have an impressive week 1 win. So which is it going to be? Are you going to go off of what you originally thought in your preseason poll, which is Penn State better than LSU, or are you going to go off resume, which would put LSU ahead of Penn State? This makes no sense to me. Ohio State 1, LSU 3. Either they should be 1 or 2, or you should go ahead and keep Penn State ahead of Ohio State. Like, it makes no sense. At any rate, Miami with the great win week 1. They're behind Georgia, behind Penn State. Like, I just do it one way or the other. Resume, or you do your original one and you stick with that and move them accordingly. One thing that I think is ridiculous is Michigan and Oklahoma, who will be playing this weekend, go Sooners. Boomer, they're 18. Michigan is 15. Now, I did watch Michigan, and they were – look, when we look at the Big Ten, talk about the Big Ten, we have got a situation here where it feels to me like the Big Ten at the top a lot better than it was last year, because we've got Oregon looking about the same as they did to me. Deficiencies at Penn State were the wide receivers. They looked much better. Watch them too. Also watched USC, Penn State, and Michigan. So Michigan, Bryce Underwood looks really good. Looks really good for this at this point in his career. I mean, that dude's going to be excellent. Oregon doesn't look like they're going to miss a beat. And obviously they shouldn't. They're in the same position as Texas and Ohio State and Georgia. They lost a bunch to the NFL. They only brought in 12 transfers, which tells us that they don't feel they need much more. So they're in a position where recruiting is reloading. And their transfer portal class was at 12 dudes, same as Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas, ranked 20 spots higher than all 3 of those. So better transfer portal class. I don't think Oregon's missing a beat. Dante Moore looked good. DeCorian Moore looked good. Their lines look good. Granted, yeah, not a great opponent, but we can only go off of what we see. But I think that they're going to be as good as they were last year. Penn State, the new receivers, Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, both look good. The one that I think is going to be the most productive of the 3, Devontae Ross, didn't get much run. They couldn't run the ball well, though, either. Nick Singleton only with matter of fact, Nick Singleton had fewer yards per carry than CJ Donaldson against Texas. So slightly concerning there, even though I do think their offensive line will get it together. USC, the team speed is starting to look like an old USC team, and they got a JUCO running back who is the real deal. I don't know where, he came from JUCO. I hadn't heard anything about this kid. Wayman Jones or something. He was the real deal. And a couple other really good backs. Mayava, their quarterback, looked pretty good, but Hussein Longstreet, who's a total stud, freshman, true freshman. If Mayava doesn't get it done, Longstreet comes in and they're set, not for this year, but for next year with the class they got coming in, the freshmen that they got this year. Like, things are back on the up and up. They did give up 5 plays of about 20 yards, though, on defense, which, typical USC, though I do think they will get better. But I do want to say, Bryce Underwood, I know a lot of Buckeye fans would love to hear, yeah, this dude sucks. He ain't ready. This dude's ready. This dude's great already. He could throw balls on a frozen rope 50 yards down the field. He's powerful. He's fast. We're going to see how fast he processes in week 2. But they're going to be better at quarterback than they were last year. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. And I think he's going to pick things up pretty quick. Offensively, he's very, very talented. So, it would be nice if he sucked and he was a big bust. That's not going to happen. So we're just going to have to deal with him and beat him. Justice Haynes, while he looked very slow while he was breaking away, he's a very good running back, a very quality running back. That's the kid they got in from Alabama, who he's one of the most productive running backs in Georgia high school football history. So a very talented back. But the Big Ten at the top, and we've not even talked about Illinois. We don't know what Indiana is going to be yet. I think it's more competitive than it was last year and is going to continue to get better as we see more and more of these programs around us investing more in football, caring more about playing winning football, and more money to be made through winning football. So that's not fantastic. But, again, Buckeyes are the number 1 team in all of college football. Anything else you guys want to hit on with that original poll other than Alabama still being in the poll, which they shouldn't be? How about Florida State at 14? I don't know why. I'd put them up higher just because you thought they might have sucked in the preseason. You've seen them play. They didn't just beat Alabama. They look really good doing it. And I was very impressed with them. Number 7, 8, and 9 have all lost a game already, which is pretty funny. That certainly wouldn't have looked like that in polls years past, but pretty funny stuff. Kalen DeBoer is a guy who, remember last year he comes in and the players are talking about what a player's coach he is, right? He relaxed it so much from Saban that they came in this year and the guys were talking about they got to be on time for things this year. Like he just do whatever the hell you kind of want kind of attitude or something that obviously didn't work for them. So come in this year trying to put the clamps down. We're going to get things back in order here. They come out, they lose. He has a press conference. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was just horrifically embarrassing. I don't know, man. If the guy loses 4 games this year, I don't know. I'll be honest. I was, when you look at the talent, the class they brought in last year, the 2025 class, it was clear that the boosters were totally invested in DeBoer. They wanted to make sure that top players in the country understood you still come to Bama when you're a top player. And they invested to make sure that happened. Now, when we look at this year, same deal. They got 5 5-stars in this 26 class. What happens if that doesn't work out? Remember last year, one of their prized freshmen, Justin Hill, could there be an opportunity for the Buckeyes to get back? Look, Justin Hill would love this defense. Justin Hill can come back and play for this defense the Buckeyes are playing now. If this were the defense last year, he'll never would have got out of Ohio for sure. And I think he is just that kind of dynamic. He looks great. Manfred says, Ohio State jumped Texas, Miami jumped Notre Dame, LSU jumped Clemson, Florida State jumped Alabama, and the losing teams didn't fall too far. Nice to see teams get rewarded for scheduling these. Yeah, totally agree. And Tone says, by the way, if you guys did not listen tonight, and I wish that I had clipped this out before I started, but I watched it right before I came on. They did tonight the interviews at the Woody. Arvell talked, and Arvell is just hilarious to listen to in these interviews because he's just such a I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? He's just so supremely talented and gifted. But basically, what does it feel like being Superman? I mean, it's pretty cool. It's too good, man. It's too good. I was just busting a gut. I wish I could play a clip of it. But yeah, a nice recruiting tool indeed. And this is something that Chris and I have been talking about for years. Like, this type of player, this freakazoid athlete, the guy that's the Arvell, right? These guys did not want to come to Ohio State. Now you can get them, and they make such a difference because all you got to do is point to this guy, the guy that can do anything you want him to do on defense. Now you got him. There's your blueprint. That's who you show Justin Hill and say, there you go. That's who we want you to be. And boom, done. And you want one of those guys on your team. Now that you got a defensive coordinator who can utilize it, I am sure that no matter how long Matt Patricia stays as the defensive coordinator of Ohio State, the next defensive coordinator will be a guy that knows how to utilize that type of dude. After the season, we're going to see that this is going to be unbelievably advantageous for the Buckeyes to have that kind of guy. Now, if you play that kind of guy, you can recruit that kind of guy. Bucks haven't had much luck at it. And that is, again, another Juck was right about that too. I don't know what else to tell you, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway, I don't like ego, but it's the truth. The Percy Harvin role has now become the Arvell Reese role. It took Knowles leaving to finally get the jack. You know what else helps recruiting? Back-to-back natties. Buck Rational, I don't know. I really don't. It didn't seem like any of these kids these days give a crap about a natty. Yeah, okay, cool. You won a natty. I would like to win one. But hey, this is a birthday gift. Check this out. You guys see this? Now, it's important because I took my wife to this game. This is the Tennessee game, my wife and my oldest son. And kind of like a souvenir, remind us of a great night that we had together, the three of us. So I was very happy to get this as a gift that I got for myself. I did get it for myself, but a gift is a gift. I got it for myself. Look, I am on a strict orders from headquarters being Nina. I am not to buy any more shirts. If you guys have been watching me for any amount of time, you know that I have a vast variety of Ohio State themed merchandise. I could probably wear a different piece of Ohio State themed merchandise for 6 months straight on the show and never wear the same thing twice. That used to be a problem, right? I tell her now it's not a problem. It's actually like, it's part of the show. It's part of the show. So it's a good thing, right? I mean, a lot of it used to sit, right? Because I wasn't wearing this to work. Now it is workish. So thanks, Doug. Appreciate that, buddy. Thank you, Lisa. I can buy her more shirts if I buy her a house with double the closet space. That's a fact. I don't know if you've heard this. We're Troy, we're in the talks about a pool. We're having a pool argument. She wants a pool. I don't want to spend the money on a pool. And I also have this hill in the backyard, which makes it very awkward to have a pool. So it's like, let's just move somewhere that already has a pool. And at the same time, I don't want to move either. I like my studio. I like my gym right there. I like the way things are. But I'm going to have to cave with this pool thing. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, there we go, Rod. If players prioritize natties today, they wouldn't go to Texas Tech. It's a new world. Thank you, Rod. Thank you. Appreciate that, buddy. No one needs more shirts. Buck Rational, that is way too rational for your guy. Oh, hey, everybody. Go check out our girl, Mika's got a new show out tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Like, share, comment. She tries to respond to all the comments. She would appreciate any support if you have time to go check her out. Obviously, a wonderful friend of all the shows and a friend of mine. So go check her out on Mika. What channel? That's on Ohio Podcast channel. That's true. That's true, Don. That is true. I try in a lot of different ways to get out of this pool thing. Dude, is this a serious talking point? This is not serious, right? Like, there's no way. Oh, okay. That's my son here. Yeah, gotta have a pool. Juck. Okay. It's dad to you, pal. Yes, Mika's podcast is on the Ohio podcast. Mika, post the link. Can you get the link? Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, friends, we're at an hour. I don't want to get in trouble. And as you can see, my boss is in the comments section. An hour is my limit, and we are at 1 and 41 seconds. So I appreciate you so much for joining me. And we will obviously be doing a couple more shows over at Juck on Bucks this week. If you are just finding me here at Buckeye Huddle, you can check me out over at Juck on Bucks as well. Don't forget, we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers here at Buckeye Huddle. We are almost there. We wanted it before Texas. Can we get it before Grambling? It would be fantastic. Check us out on BuckeyeHuddle.com, where you can get more of me, Tony Gerdeman, Tom Orr, Mark Givler, Kevin Noon, Andrew Ellis. Hey, our guy Ross Fulton breaking down the X's and O's. Man, there's so much there. The most comprehensive single spot in all of the world for Ohio State Buckeyes coverage. Of that, I'm positive. Now, check me out at Juck on Bucks anytime. You can subscribe over there as well. I'm going for 20,000 subscribers. Look, I'm gaining on my boss, the Buckeye Huddle. All right. Appreciate you guys, man. Always a good time. Thank you so much to those of you in the comments section. You do make this as enjoyable of a Monday and Wednesday evening as I can have. Now I shall go see my Nina, and I don't know. I think we're having some pumpkin pie for my birthday tonight because we didn't have it last night. All right. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Juck out. Hey, it's Juck. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. Start.